Welcome everyone to the discussion. Please come into the circle or thing that looks like a circle. What we're going to be talking about in this panel is essentially asking ourselves, how do we? Another one way of framing the question that we are concerned about here is, how do we generate wealth? That's one way you could frame the question. Another way you could frame the question is, how do you expand people's economic choices, right? Of that, I think Dolly in her presentation already spoke about small pickle makers in Nagaland in northeastern India being linked to the larger Indian market and the question of the marketability of taste, that they could no longer preserve pickle in the traditional way because non-Naga people don't necessarily like that taste, so then they have to alter their taste. But what does this altering of taste actually mean? What does it mean in terms of what are its social effects, what are its political effects? And then I think we have another set of questions around a very important player in this whole, in the development debate is the private sector. I mean, after all economic activity is not concentrated in the state. Even in the most totalitarian, the total state kind of regimes, you have economic activities undertaken by the private sector. So what is the role of the private sector? How do we imagine the private sector being a player that can contribute positively in terms of post-war outcomes? So we have two papers, one from Nepal, Raja Lakshmi Gurung, a PhD candidate actually, and part of what she's going to be presenting is going to be her ongoing research that looks at how the private sector dealt with the conflict in Nepal during a particular time frame. Another presenter is Anar Bhatt from Okapi Research and Advisory Services. She will be sharing with us a paper that she co-authored with her colleague Lena. And Lena's not here, but Anar will be speaking on behalf of the both of them. And basically, they're going to be taking us through the findings of a research they did in South Asia, particularly in Pakistan and Sri Lanka, looking at social enterprises. That is, enterprises who are engaged in commerce, but with an explicitly social purpose. And we have two very interesting discussants to whom I'm very grateful for their time. In alphabetical order of their first names. Achala Samara Divakara from, a lot of us in Colombo at least know the Good Market. Achala works with Seva Lanka and is the national coordinator of the income generation program. And Achala will be responding to mainly maybe Anar's paper, but also maybe to something that Raja says, and also maybe speak a little bit about the Good Market. And also Murtaza Esufali, a friend of SEPA's, first, may I say, and also one of the board of directors of HEMA's, a large company that's in hospitality, healthcare particularly, and a whole host of other services. So it's a really eclectic kind of panel, and we're really looking forward to an interesting discussion. So without further delay, I have to note though that we are starting about 15 minutes late. Let's see how it goes. So what I propose is that maybe we start with Anar because there could be various reasons right from the fact that her name begins with A. But let's just say it's because the presentation is already up and loaded. So we'll start with Anar, and then we'll have Raja following. And then I will invite the two discussants to intervene and respond to the papers. But in between, I'll just take, if there are any questions from those of you in the room to Anar and Raja, we'll take 2 or 3 quick questions, and then we'll head on to the two discussants. Okay, Anar, so might I suggest that perhaps you, let's aim for about 15 minutes and see how it goes? Yeah? Okay. Over to you. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. And first off, Vijay, if I go more than 5 minutes over the literature review, introduction, and not start with the case studies, just let me know. So I'd like to begin with thanking SEPA and Vijay to give us the opportunity to present this paper to all of you. And I would not start without acknowledging the three entrepreneurs who agreed for the interviews at the very short notice. They are Sara Adil of Let Us Be Kids, Amara Farooq Malik of Sepla Foundation in Islamabad and Lahore respectively, and Umesh Kumar of Future for Jaffna. And I would like to also start off mentioning that as experts on social enterprises rather than conflict, we do discuss definitions of conflict or post-conflict in this paper, but we recognize that we are muddling conflict and post-conflict by reporting on case studies without making a distinction between the two. But for the purpose of this paper, we focus on social enterprise in situations related to the conflict, working on rehabilitation, livelihood generation, skill building. We, however, welcome comments on this approach. The paper explores the emergence of social enterprise in Sri Lanka and Pakistan and the role it is playing in enabling development in conflict and post-conflict context. Social enterprise as a concept does not have one clear definition. And this paper, we broadly define it as a small enterprise or organization with the dual aims of financial sustainability and clear social impact. There is very limited existing literature specifically on the role of social enterprise in conflict and post-conflict settings. This is therefore a first modest attempt at a limited budget at exploring the role that social enterprises play and can have in enabling economic and social development in conflict and post-conflict areas in South Asia. As Vijay mentioned, it is partially based on fieldwork across Pakistan and Sri Lanka early this year. And this was complemented by additional interviews. One of the challenges and limitations of the study was that it was a first attempt in a conflict and post-conflict environment. We've done a lot of studies around social enterprises, but this is the first time we're looking at through the lens of conflict and looking at enterprises who particularly work at conflict and draw out lessons from them. I would start with at least introducing you to what we mean by social enterprises when we mention them, right? So social enterprises we think are distinct from conventional enterprises in that they combine commercial goals with social aims. In Pakistan and Sri Lanka, as in rest of South Asia, that generally means a product or service targeting poor and or marginalized communities. These underserved markets and consumers are many times costly and complicated to reach. And to date, it has often been NGOs working with these communities where government have failed. Furthermore, social entrepreneurs are diverse and work across a range of different sectors, such as energy, health, education, and skills and agriculture. They offer different kinds of products, such as toilets for sanitation or clean drinking water, or services like financial products, literacy, business skills training, or access to livelihoods. They are also of different sizes and take up any business model, be it not-for-profit, for-profit, or a hybrid model. However anecdotal, there are a number of reports and articles, and we have actually cited Guardian articles on this particular subject that cite case studies of social entrepreneurship in countries that have been under prolonged conflict or war, like Somalia, Uganda, Kosovo, and Rwanda. To set the context and tone of the discussion, I'll start off with giving you a brief on the macro level support system available for social entrepreneurs in both the countries. To start with Pakistan, because the understanding of social enterprises is still developing in the country, the term evoked varied responses from different stakeholders interviewed, and each one understood and defined it differently. However, social enterprises exist across different sectors and across Pakistan, although it's mainly focused in the main cities of Islamabad, Lahore, and Karachi. In terms of support that exists for them in Pakistan, as you'd see, with a history of vibrant civil society and heavy focus of donors, Pakistan has a thriving not-for-profit sector. This has supported the expansion of initiatives surrounding micro-enterprise development in the country. In addition to the donors, the government has also introduced programs like the Pakistan Poverty Alleviation Fund and the PM Youth Fund for Entrepreneurship to promote entrepreneurs at the grassroots level. At the same time, self-identifying social enterprises draw support from mostly private-run and non-government-led actors. Invest to Innovate, for example, is the only accelerator incubator for social enterprises who themselves have raised funds through crowdsourcing platforms. On the other hand, support from mainstream technology-oriented startups exist, both from the government side as well as from private incubators, accelerators, networks, and whatnot. While the support system for social enterprises is emerging, the support to those that work in particularly conflict-affected areas and peace building and rehabilitation of victims is even less. You can only imagine the amount of support that exists for them. However, with the growing reluctance towards heavy dependence on foreign aid, and a sense that the focus on grant giving and micro-entrepreneurship requires a new alternative, there is an increasing focus towards making social initiatives more sustainable and entrepreneurial. Moving on to Sri Lanka, as compared to Pakistan, it's relatively very, very less. When we were speaking to stakeholders, the concept of social enterprises was very nascent, with almost limited to no support from donors and government. There are also much, much fewer social enterprises, self-identifying social enterprises in operation, and they exist across fewer sectors, as you would see, than in Pakistan. However, British Council, Ashoka, and private initiatives like the Good Market are focused on encouraging self-identifying social enterprises and socially conscious startups. The support for startups, however, is flourishing, like in Pakistan, and it in fact has more more support from angel networks, venture fund, their business plan competitions, and university-based incubation programs in place in Sri Lanka, which is really, really commending. And a lot of that support filters down to socially relevant startups as well. Again, the support to self-identifying social enterprise is sparse, and that to social enterprises working in post-war and conflict-affected areas are even lesser. There seems to be no clear distinction between how social enterprises and mainstream NGOs are perceived in the country, and both appear to be viewed with some amount of skepticism, especially from the government. That's what the sense we got. So you could clearly see, before we move on to the best part of the presentation, the social entrepreneurs, the case studies, I would just like you to see the difference between the support that is there for Pakistan and the support that is there for Sri Lanka. So we're going to be presenting Let Us Be Kids and Sepla Foundation from Pakistan and Future for Jaffna from Sri Lanka. Let Us Be Kids. This organization is located in Islamabad, and they rehabilitate children of Afghan refugees living in slums on the outskirts of the city. And they also work with children of internally displaced persons, empowering them by helping them identify their talents and interests and enable them to reach their potential. It does so through providing them psychological, emotional, material, and social support to supplement their overall education and development. While doing so, they strive to be self-sufficient. Despite the fact that sustaining an orphanage or a welfare organization for children without donor grants is extremely challenging, Let Us Be Kids has been putting various innovative strategies to use to be self-sufficient. They have been financially self-sufficient and self-sustaining since their inception, this is one of the best organizations we've met in South Asia put together. Apart from educating children, Let Us Be Kids engages them in arts, music, and gardening, which contributes to both their overall well-being and income generation for the organization. Let Us Be Designs, one of their initiatives, uses the artwork that children create on merchandise like stationeries, t-shirts, home decor, and accessories, which are sold through exhibition and online e-commerce websites. And they create really, really buyable, I would say, merchandise, and they put a lot of thought into the design and what people would actually prefer buying. At least I would love buying these. While they're trying out different strategies like these to generate income, they have also partnered with business schools to improve upon their model. IE Business Schools in Madrid, for instance, had 400 of its MBA students work for a week on Let Us Be Kids to help them refine their fundraising strategy. The students came up with creative ideas to solve many of the operational and sustainability challenges. and that that the organization face. Now, it's not short of challenge, right? Going through the main challenges, mainstreaming the children into the society, back into the society, is a major concern for them. Through the existing programs, they have been able to engage children in productive and intellectually stimulating activities, but they still lag behind when it comes to getting formal education and mainstreaming them into the city schools that normal children go to. Counseling and therapy are required for many of the children of internally displaced persons or refugees, especially from Afghanistan, that Let Us Be Kids work with. Although the children of Afghan refugees were born in Pakistan after their parents moved here in 2001, they still look forward to a time when they will go back to their country. Hence, they lack a sense of belonging to the place they presently reside in, even if they were born there. Many children carry anti-US sentiments. They express this fear when the organizations have volunteers and experts with white skin. Let Us Be Kids works on easing such sentiments through counseling session and having these children spend more time with their foreign visitors to dispel their fears and myths that they carry. In terms of infrastructure support and creating market, it's something that they struggle with. They carry out their activities in borrowed spaces. However, they end up putting many of the initiatives in the back burner due to lack of permanent place to operate. For example, Pakistan still needs to have the PayPal in place, so they cannot directly have an e-commerce website. So they have to go to the US to register an online store, and that's how they work around the system because the lack of it. In order to keep children coming to Let Us Be Kids, this is one of the key challenges that they are facing, is improving the income stream of the family. If kids are coming to Let Us Be Kids, that directly affects their income because they are not begging on the streets and they are affecting the income stream of the family. In order to keep the parents engaged and augment the family income, they have launched a new initiative, Saman, which is a design lab that trains the mother in making jewelry and accessories, which in turn are marketed along with artwork merchandise. I would really urge you to go to their website and see the type of jewelry they make. You will not believe that the design itself is so beautiful that you would yourself want to buy. Coming to Lahore from Islamabad, with 40% of its population who cannot read and write, and 1/3 of its population not yet 30 years of age, Pakistan has a long road ahead in reaping its youth advantage. This becomes more problematic with unemployment in the backdrop of political upheaval and terrorism. It is imperative, therefore, for the state and the civil society to engage the youth to use their energies towards socio-economic development of the country. Sepla Foundation, which is headquartered in Lahore, but it works across conflict-affected areas of semi-urban and rural Pakistan. It addresses this problem by empowering children, youth, and women through engagement in activities such as leadership development, confidence building, and inculcates lateral thinking in them, and also encourages them to be agents of social change. It has recently started an initiative that promotes social entrepreneurship for peace building for the youth. 5 minutes? Okay. Sepla's Impact Change Accelerator is an innovative social entrepreneurship for peace building initiative, and it organizes business plan competition for social enterprises and social business ideas for youth in the semi-urban and rural areas. It also provides short-term incubation support involving training and mentorship. Qualifying participants receive legal advice on company registration, guidance and tax structure, as well as assistance in website development. I'd quickly move over to Future for Jaffna. I wouldn't want to leave them alone. As Sri Lanka ended 3 decades of civil war in 2006, it took away earning members from many households, especially in the northern region. With prolonged tension in the region, there is a limited industrial development that would provide employment. This has led to a large amount of the population migrating out of the region. One of the worst affected groups of people are the widows of men killed during the conflict, because these women depended on their husband's income for survival. Now, Future for Jaffna is a UK-based charity with operations in the region. It generates livelihood opportunities for people, mainly widows of the civil war, by business training to eventually create sustainable business cooperatives called value chain associations. We'll quickly go through, their operations and the challenges they face in brief. The entrepreneur mentions that in a disaster-stricken area where there are donations coming in from various philanthropic entities, it gets challenging for the enterprise to make their clients see value in the services that small businesses offer. When the population is offered goods and services, be it business training for free, it becomes challenging when you try to even, charge a minimal fee for it, which they don't. Therefore, Future for Jaffna is trying to establish its niche in business training, entrepreneurship development, and job creation through community engagement that will create sustainable income sources for the widows and children of Jaffna. They have worked with about 150 widows so far to help them set up their own businesses and organize them into 40 VCAs. As it began as a student social enterprise in UK, to sustain their initial operations and foundational work, they began with raising grants to support initial operations and therefore registered as a UK charity. As they grow, they aim to transform to a self-sustaining enterprise with a strong base of VCAs. Just to quickly draw out the key points and wrap it up, all three of them, as we've noticed, have taken up a not-for-profit model. That is not to say that social enterprises do not take a for-profit model. It's just this is what they've taken up to best suit their operations. Another key challenge is manpower, like any other social entrepreneur. They depend on, and especially these three enterprises depend on volunteer support. And when it comes to getting support for more rural or more unsafe zones, quote unquote, they fall short on skills and manpower that they need. So that's the key things that were emerging. However, in different ways, these three social enterprises operate in conflict and post-conflict context, and the challenges they face are varied, are different than each other. The internal situations of Pakistan and Sri Lanka differ substantially, and so do the issues that social enterprises face in the two countries. Why only two countries? Even within Sri Lanka, much of Sri Lanka was developing for the last 3 decades, except for the northern region, which has only started recovering since the end of civil war. This has left it behind in the race for progress. So we saw a marked difference between social enterprises we interviewed in Colombo, in Kandy, and social enterprises we interviewed for Future for Jaffna, for example. And so to speak, financing the operations can be a challenge. Future for Jaffna, which relies to a great extent on foreign funding, the challenge is the red tape of getting the funding into Sri Lanka. Meanwhile, Let Us Be Kids is able to create enough cleverly designed merchandise to be able to sustain themselves financially from the sales, but struggles to build that next step to scale, creating a larger and longer term partnership for their goods, which would enable the organization to invest in infrastructure and increase the number of children they can work with. SEPLA, on the other hand, finds that the number of participants that become social and entrepreneurs out of their program is a very small percentage. Another challenge that they face, especially SEPLA Foundation, is motivation and migration for employment. If students end up finding better job opportunity, they would just put their course down and move on to different cities. So that's one of the challenges they face. To sort of conclude, social enterprises are often pioneers, and as such may have to create their own market, their own niche, their own operations. There may or may not be precedent. This may be especially true in the context of conflict. There may be limited markets already in operations. The shift towards development through social enterprises rather than more conventional forms of charity and aid is challenging because of the dependencies and habits that have been created by a long period of time during which assistance has been given in the form of charity and given away. A good example is Pakistan and India, for example. The large debt forgiveness programs and large donor programs have contributed to a sense that loan is a grant, is often a grant. So that sort of, concept of giving back, or that difference between loan and a grant is missing. However, these are early days, and there are very real challenges to making social enterprises financially sustainable, as well as scale for increased social impact. All three organizations highlight the lack of support, both financial and non-financial. Moving forward, as the study has highlighted, the lack of existing information and knowledge on social enterprise in conflict context, there are ample gaps to fill in terms of improving our understanding of social enterprises. In particular, there is a need for a better understanding of how to support and promote them, working with conflict especially, and of promoting such financial and non-financial support. With an increased focus on entrepreneurship in both countries, this is a good time to engage with them as an alternative way of supporting economic development in a sustainable manner. Although this is not an only way out, this can be something that can be supplemented with existing efforts. Yeah, you can.
Thank you. I think that was very interesting, and there are lots of things to talk about there. I think Raja needs help with her laptop. I think Tabitha is coming. Hold on, Raja. I think Tabitha will... Hold on. Raja, hold on. Let Tabitha... I think... you have it already?
Yeah, we got it.
You're not going to switch laptops? You got it emailed. Great. Okay. So we will now look at Nepal, a completely different context, and also we are looking at quite a different set of actors, not social enterprises, but the private sector. 20 minutes begins now. Well, 15. Plus.
Okay.
You can stretch it a little bit.
First of all, thank you, Siba and Vijay, for allowing me to present my research and get feedback. It's a bit different from what Anna presented. My research work is focused on role of private sector in post-conflict economic recovery, a case study of Nepal, where I'm looking particularly at the period of 2006, when we had a comprehensive peace agreement, and till 2013, when we had our second CA election, Constitution Assembly election. To just give a brief idea, Nepal had a decade-long Maoist conflict, which started in 1996 and ended with 2006. With comprehensive peace agreement, it is a negotiated end of the conflict. So it's completely different from Sri Lanka. And if you, there are lots of studies to identify the causes of conflict. And if you look at from greed and grievance lenses, it's mainly say that it's a grievance-based with complex political and economic causes, where poverty, unemployment, regional disparity is identified as the major causes of conflict, and the mismatch between political and economic empowerment. Before 1990, Nepal was a non-political party. It was a monarchy. There's no multi-party democracy. Only after 1990 we had a democracy. So there was a huge political empowerment, but the economic aspiration of different region, different ethnic was not met. So after CPA, there was a huge challenge for Nepal, not only for huge political challenges, but also the challenges related to economic. And there are many studies which identify private sector has a big potential of peace building. So, but the main research gap is how private sector can be engaged, what are the motivation and what are the limitation for them to be engaged in post-conflict peace building or post-conflict economic recovery. To give a brief about my methodology, it's a part of my PhD which look at the entire period of 19 years, covering the conflict and post-conflict period and how the private sector engaged in the peace process and peace building. The objective I have mentioned before, to look at particularly at the post-conflict economic recovery, I am looking at the three kind of engagement of private sector. It's political engagement, because it said that to have the economic recovery, you need a stable political framework, institutions, and stability to have the long-term economic plan, and economic engagement and social engagement to fill the fabric, social fabric, which is broken in the conflict period. It's mainly qualitative case study, and the primary information was collected between March 2014 and June 2014. Respondent varied from FNCCI president, civil society member, political leader, and journalist. The first is political engagement. Instead of looking entire period and looking at every engagement, I've identified 3 main cases during that period, and I'll be looking at each event in depthly. First case is, this is the event which took place in 28th April 2010. And to give briefly about the context, in 2008 we had a first Constitution Assembly election, where then rebel Maoist was come as the biggest political party, and they formed a coalition government led by the Maoists. But the Maoist party has to resign because of the controversy of sacking of army chief, and then the next government was formed under another communist party, UML, and that was also a coalition government which kept the Maoist government, Maoist party outside in the opposition. So the biggest party was outside, and they were continuously stopping the working of Constitution Assembly, asking for to have the contest government. And in April they have actually declared a general strike starting from May 1, as May 28 was the deadline for a new constitution. And during that context, it was very volatile situation, as the Maoists themselves have organized in 45 different places training, which include 10,000 their cadets who are practicing with stakes, sickles, and they have declared that if their demands were not met, they will go for people revolt and bring their constitution according to their desire. And at that time, the FNTCI organized this decisive debate, and first time in the history, 3 top political parties with 3 top leaders of within that political party actually came, and the whole debate was broadcasted live, and it was mediated by FNCCI Vice President and chaired by so the whole the debate was focused on providing a space to the political party so that they can negotiate and bring to end that stalemate. And if I may analyze, what FNCCI did was to bring this end of this political instability and stalemate. They played the role of a mediator, and instead of going into private negotiation, they put a public pressure. The motivating factor when during the debate, it's a 3-hour-long debate where the political party were discussing and what were their political stand. We can clearly see that FNCCI or the private sector has its own constituent which catering the demands of the private sector itself. So instead of providing a safe space to the political party, it was actually, it became like kind of a debate where the private sector and each political party was taking their own stand. So even though it started with providing a space, it became a political argument where the Maoists got cornered. And another motivating factor was there was an immediate threat of violence and forceful donation, because from May 1 they were starting indefinite general strike. They were bringing all their cadets from the rural area to Kathmandu. They have occupied all the schools, public places, and they were asking for donations, and that was a very big threat during that time, where in April 29, entire Kathmandu, the capital of Nepal, was shut down, and there was nobody declared any shutdown at that time, but it was fear that the cadet of Maoists will come and ask for the donation. The factor which supported was obviously there was a lot of internal agencies which were working in the background from 2003 onwards, where they're educating about the role of private sector and what they can play, what they can contribute to break this kind of stalemate. There was obvious support from political party. There was two, beside Maoist, there was Nepali Congress and another communist party which had a close relation with the private sector itself. And the Maoist Then FNCCA President Kush Kumar Joshi had a very close relation with the Maoist leader because after 2006 Comprehensive Peace Agreement, through his own initiative, he was a very forward bringing Maoist leader to the public and initiating the dialogues. So there was obvious support and trust with all the political party that the FNCCI is there to protect. And the public perception was very high. Civil society public perception is also very strong, and that was the factor. However, what I see is where the debate actually didn't provide the safe space was that the political aspiration of the FNCCI leader who are moderating or chairing, because instead of providing this space, they start coming up with their own agendas of private sector. And there was no clear goal. The debate was only to provide a space which they didn't have the goal what they were asking for. Even though during that debate, 3 political parties came up with the commitment. The biggest commitment of the Maoists was when they disowned that they will not have any forceful donation, and the coming up, the strike will be completely peaceful. They will not use violence. However, beside that, there was no big any commitment. The outcome, commitment from the Maoist, disowned forceful donation. That was the first time in the history where the Maoist had to face the hostility from private sector and public, which was broadcast live. So that was later it was identified the main point where the hostility toward Maoist was starting to consolidate and taking this space. Another case is of the peace rally, because during the debate they didn't back out from the general strike, and they went for the general strike, which started in May 1, 2010, and even though they have stated that the strike will not be violent, from day 4th it got violent, crippling the entire nation, shutting down and everything. And it's believed that with that decisive debate which went public, it gave a platform for private sector, public and civil society to put forward their demands. And on May 6, 2010, actually FNCCI put forward the demand to the political parties that if within 2 days you don't come up with the concessions, we'll go for not a strike but a peace rally that will protest all the political party and disown them. However, and there was whole SMS media, they were actively asking public to come and join this peace rally. So however, the day before the actual peace rally, there was obvious threat from, there was no public threat, but there was the rumors that there will be some kind of clashes between the Maoist cadre and the FNCCI, and Maoists were not very pleased with the role of FNCCI, and at the last moment, FNCCI backed out. They didn't say that we are organizing. However, in the next state, we can see that the entire rally, the presence of FNCCI president, other private sector associations, civil society, and the public, and almost 20,000 people came in the peace rally, and there was obvious pressure, and there was no big clashes between the public and the Maoists. So there was I can say that the outcome of the debate was this peace rally, where there is obvious the entire the pressure of public, civil society, private sector could be redirected towards one single goal. And so in this, to create a political consciousness, the tool used was the public pressure. Motivating factor was the political deadlock and increasing economic cost, because then Prime Minister has said that they said that we will be resigned if there is a complete package. So both the parties were completely there were no common ground. So there was a complete political deadlock and increasing economic cost. The success of decisive debate helped private sector to show solidarity with the civil society, media and the public. And there was a general aspiration, because in the decisive debate itself, there was more than 5,000 email all over the country which came to ask question the political party about the intention. The factor which facilitated is that when the FNCCA backed out and the media was actually asking public people, they were very careful not to give any political nature or not to say that we are against Maoists. The general demand was a political party have to come into the consciousness. And there was an obvious civil society presence. There is a famous Mahajodi in Nepal, which is very prominent in civil society, which came forward and actually led. So even though there was a presence of FNCCA, it was kind of supported by FNCCA, but in the front there was civil society, and the public perception was also very high. Outcome next day, the Maoists ended their indefinite strike, citing that we can sense the obvious discomfort to the people. But many journalists and peace experts said this is the point where the Maoists realize that people revolt through road will not be possible, and it helped them to bring into the political process. I can just briefly give you about the role in the Constitution Assembly. During the first Constitution Assembly, there were prominent business leaders who were nominated by the political party to be present in a CA. However, it's controversial because political parties said that because of the post-conflict economic recovery and expertise, we are bringing them, but in Nepal, the political donation to the party is not transparent, but there was rumors that these leaders were giving 10 million to 30 million rupees to secure their places. Here I just want to highlight that there was obvious post-conflict, there's a euphoria from the private sector also to contribute in the making of new Nepal, but there was a personal economic benefits. There was a case when our financial secretary has to resign because one of the CA member who was the industrial was in a VAT scandal, and the minister was actually protecting. There's rumors that he was behind the sacking of that. So there's obvious. About the economic engagement, I can briefly go. One of the presenter from Nepal had said that development is such a common big projects where FNTCI is working with donor agencies, which covering almost all the district of Nepal. And the primary, there's many reasons why, but the primary reason is that it's because of its grassroots reach and access to community, as well as the market has provided the FNCCA. And even the FNCCA now, there's many debate on the goals of FNCCA, but now many people say that FNCCA has become an NGO, where they themselves prepared district-wide studies where they said that this is the product which we can commercially produce, and going to different donor agency and asking for the support. So and now within the district association, it's like there's a competition between different candidates who can bring the more project to their district. So it's based on that the election is also redirected. So it's just to give that it's because of FNCCA entire district is covered, but we have to yet to analyze its effect. I can go to much detail, but I'll just skip. Another area where the private sector is working is with the government. In 2009, first Maoist government launched Nepal Small Enterprise Self-Employment Fund, and here I can just highlight one point is that during its launch, the government has said that they will produce 70,000 employment within 1 year. And during that, they use FNCCI channel to provide orientation training program, and it was said that if somebody get orientation program, they will get collateral free loan. And during that time, FNCCI was successful to give training to 6 lakh people within 2 months. But the problem happened during the implementation, where lack of incentive and I'll just say lack of incentive package, the actual people who got the loan was only 4,000 during the first 3 years, and later when the incentive was increased and local cooperative was involved, it reached to 25,000. Here I just want to emphasize the incentive which was linked to FNCCI and its impact, 6 lakh to 4,000 to 25,000. I just want to focus on that. And another big project which again happened in Maoist government, second time Maoist government, was Kathmandu Kulekhani Hetauda. worked with the model of 4P, people, public, private model. It's worked in boot mechanism, and this is the first time where any private sector, Nepali private sector working in this level. And since it has the political party, it's support of political party, and even though there was a rule that any company which didn't have any thank you. I just finished. In the rule, it said that any company which didn't has the experience with the boat will be rewarded by that project. However, political party made an exception, and there was a new company formed where out of 9, 8 board members were the ex-FNCCI president or related to other private sector association. And this highway has to be ended in 2016. And because of the political party support and the association, there's a community level support, as a result of which it's progressing much smoother as compared to other projects which are run by individual private companies in the remote areas. About the social engagement, I just want to say that there are few philanthropic and humanitarian engagement which is limited to few incidences, and there's one big business house which is actively engaged in philanthropic and humanitarian engagement, but there's a perception that because of its tarnished image, it's actually investing on that. So otherwise there's no such big another big FNCCI was during the deadline of after the deadline of second C extension in 2012, where there was a debate of ethnic federalism, and there was a 3-day general strike called by the indigenous people, and which followed by the strike by another a Hindu group, which said that we didn't want ethnic federalism, and another was supporting if the ethnic federalism is not brought, we'll go into the strike. But in that case also, the FNCCI didn't react immediately and didn't give any feedback. However, after 3 days, it called for a peace rally where it called for social harmony and solidarity. So I can think of only that incident where the FNCCI get played, because it was really a very critical time. I just want to end with 2 statements. One was given by FNCCI president, who said that what's the point of us being haves if the rest of country is haves not. However, people still doubt this statement. It was mostly to cater the donor sector, but if I see it more critically, the grassroots reach of FNCCI and its incentive nature and its alliance with the government as well as the donor agency, it's a very good framework, a network where we can reach to the rural areas as well as provide access to the community as well as market to have this post-conflict economic recovery. Yeah, that's.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we've had 2 very interesting presentations, throwing up so many different questions. What I want to do is, before we ask Achala and Murtaza to come in, maybe we should take a few questions from the floor. If anyone has questions, comments. Yeah? Let me pass this. Unless, no, I think the issue is not about hearing you. If they are going to stream you, then they need you to speak into the mic.
Thank you both for the amazing presentations. Just a few questions. It's great work by these case studies that you shared, Anar. It's just about your paper. I have a few questions. Number 1 is the places you chose were Lahore and Islamabad. Now, what I understand is Lahore and Islamabad are the 2 best doing cities in the country, where you find a lot of help and where you find a lot of people doing philanthropic activities, and you find a lot of people doing even the schools are more acceptable, they're accessible to people, you have enough schools, you have enough seats for the children in that area. So I just want to know the work that these two foundations are doing, is it only focused in these cities, or is it because Lahore is far from the conflict sites, and Islamabad also, if just saying that if a refugee actually managed to get to Islamabad, then he's one of the much better off ones, yeah? So the reasons why you chose these two cities, and whether their work goes down into where it's because we've been the past few days in this conference we've been talking about aid should go or help should go where it's needed most. So is their work need-based? And my second question is the operation. You said, you know, it helps their mother and everybody, and it helps the children not going begging on the streets, so they get them in. But are they paying them cash, or are they paying the students that you were speaking about? Are they paying them cash? Because that will really cause, I don't know, it brings a question in my mind that if the model is workable.
Okay. Christoph there has a question. I also have a small suggestion, if you all don't mind, which is that let's try not to go too much into detail into the workings of the social enterprises, because what we're trying to do is get the big picture. So you will do answer Anam, but very briefly, because let's not get too caught up into the finer details. I only say that because, you know, we're trying to, you know, grab the analysis. Christoph, I saw your hand first. So.
Okay, just very briefly, seems like a simple question, but it may be tricky, I'm aware of that. Your working definition of social enterprise. There's quite a debate on what one should regard as social enterprise and what not, and some boil it down to just being public benefit, but then many organizations qualify to work towards public benefit. Can you just elaborate on your understanding or your working definition of social enterprise?
So we'll collect a few questions and then we can come back.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for these two presentations, very fascinating, and I was very excited for this panel, and thanks for asking this question because I had exactly the same one. I'm going to phrase it a little bit different. So since you at the beginning said that social enterprise can mean a lot of things, and then when you kind of talked about these different social enterprises before, let it be children or kids, you said self-called, or they call themselves. So you never said these are social enterprises because I perceive them, but they said there was a business or something and they decided, oh, I'm a social enterprise now. So my question is, could this social enterprise just be a new buzzword, meaning either it's an NGO or it's a business, just because business means capitalism and maybe NGO just means bad or charity? So just to play the advocate.
I have two very quick questions, one for Anar, one for Lakshmi. Anar, you say that it's difficult for firms to survive during conflict, and I think my question is related to you, Christoph. So we look at conflict situations around the world since the 19th century, right? So we're looking at tea, we're looking at oil, and there are certain commodities, certain businesses which thrive in the most violent places. Diamond is one that comes to our mind, or the material that is used to make cellular phones. What do you call it? Coltan, yes. So is South Asia a different case, or are these enterprises that are coming up in post-conflict or conflict societies, facing new challenges? I just want to know. Lakshmi, thank you so much for your presentation. I think what you bring out and what really caught my attention is really the state in action and what we understand. And it comes from my panel as well. We talked about the state. The state is really something that's tangible, but the private, the public, and all the messiness put together. I think you bring it out so well, and it's segue, but you'll be an amazing teacher. And so I wanted to know about the role of business people, really, even during the conflict, because when it comes to business associations, they always have played a very important role in conflicts. So can you tell something about that in Nepal? Thank you.
Okay, any other? So, how do we want to do it? Do you want to give very quick responses? Maybe just like 2 minutes each. You can come back and elaborate later on.
So I'd start with responding on the definition or the understanding of social enterprises, and then maybe I'll briefly touch upon your point on their choice of location. So there is, we recognize that there is a huge debate on what do we mean by social enterprises. For this larger project, we worked with the British Council and a team in UK to compare the understanding in South Asia and what does the UK mean by it. So what we found was that their understanding, or the European or the UK understanding of social enterprises, is pure charity based. But when you come to it's a charitable organization. That's the first off recognizing what social enterprises are. But if you come to South Asia, there are the pure business organizations and there are the charities, and there are these in between chunk. But the South Asian reality is that this chunk is a larger one. So what do we call them social enterprises, or do they identify themselves with the term? As researchers, we first off identify enterprises that call themselves social enterprises. And if there is an overlap between a mainstream enterprise, and they also have a social impact, we call them, we've coined a term called businesses being social, because through their operations or through livelihood generation, they're touching upon a population that is underserved. So that's a very thin line differentiation that we make. And in terms of legal orientation, they in South Asia, they can be for-profit making, they can be private limited, ready to be listed and taking up, they are the darlings of the impact investors, and they can even be NGOs that have a profit making, or they have an income generating arm, like the Let Us Be Kids. So they can take up any legal orientation. So that's, if it answers the question of the broad understanding or definitions well. And coming to Anam, so we chose these enterprises because they were primarily working on rehabilitation. And it's rather a factor of, because they fit into our, criteria of sustainable operations, addressing issues that are conflict related, be it livelihood generation or rehabilitation. So that was our main criteria of looking into them, and we're still looking for enterprises that fit into these three criteria. Yes Network was one, but we chose Sepla Foundation because they are relatively small. Yes Network is based out of Lahore, and they work across large geographies of Pakistan, and they've been doing similar work too. That answers your question.
Regarding role of business association during conflict periods, it's very interesting because when I interviewed one of the Maoist leaders, they said private sector were never been our enemy. However, once they said it as a class enemy, but they were saying that it's national private sector and we encourage them. And and another thing is that there's two kind of business companies there. One who took ideological stand, who faced most, and they said that these private sector didn't understand the bigger political debates, and another group of private sector who understand, and by giving donation or extortion money, they survive, even expanded during the conflict period. And they justify it that we give it to political party, Maoist is another political party fighting for them, so it was like they survive. Even one of the CA member who was nominated by the Maoist said that it was a reward for him because he was the person who was collecting money from the Kathmandu private sector business houses and giving it to the Maoist at the time when his brother was a minister in the king's government. So the same family, same business house supporting two different regimes. So it's like, if you are more politically aware, you can survive.
Yeah, I think that. And then there's Dolly's question, which is still floating around, which is, how can conflict be good for business? I was reminded of Star Trek. In Star Trek, there's this race called the Ferengi, who worship greed. And they have these rules of acquisition. One rule of acquisition is war is good for business. The next rule of acquisition is peace is good for business. So that's anyway. So let me hand over to Achala. So do you have your presentation? Yeah, please. So can we say that you'll spend about no more than 15 minutes max? 15. Yeah. And could you use that time to also respond to some of what Anara said? And I just want to table one question also, which you might want to pick up on, which is, where in Sri Lanka's economic policy kind of orientation do you see the space for social enterprises, if at all?
Yeah, I'll take 15 minutes anyway. So thank you, Vijay. So I think before go to the presentation, I just taking a 2-3 minutes to share actually picture presentation, because I know a lot of people heard about good market, but I don't know whether they've been there. So anyway, I'm really happy to share some of the pictures just to take few ideas about the good market. So this is the good marketplace and some of our products. I'm just immediately taking time. So that's it. I hope it helped to you all to just take a few idea about the good market. I'll take this is really. Okay, actually, Good Market is started last 2012 as a one of Seva Lanka, one of initiative, because in Seva Lanka, actually Seva Lanka is a Sri Lankan local NGO. We always we are trying to implement through our projects we encourage a lot of people who would like to start their own business or own their own self-employment activities all over the country, but we realize actually a lot of projects and a lot of NGOs, they implemented a lot of projects, but maybe people started their own businesses, but sometimes we realize because people the implemented project, after project is finished, maybe business also finished, because we done a lot of research and we asked a lot of question about a lot of people in because people who started business. They said no, the main problem is to access the market, because we are actually in remote areas, maybe war affected areas, tsunami affected areas, but it's really hard to directly all the way go to the cities, all the way go to the markets. It's really hard for us. So if somebody can help us to giving us to that market opportunities, definitely we are really happy and we can be really successful and sustainable. So there are a lot of the farmers all over the country and producers, and also the consumers. A lot of consumers are inquiring us and saying that where we can buy like ethical products, organic products, and especially how we can help to social enterprise. So then that's why we thought we need to create a kind of market. So then this is the background. Actually, Seva Lanka and other organizations had helped thousands of families, as I told, develop organic home gardens for household nutrition and food security. As people gain more experience with organic cultivation techniques, their product increased beyond household requirements, and they began asking how to access organic or kind of like farmers market or market opportunities. So then actually Sri Lanka has many well-educated consumers in the other side. These consumers wanted to feed their families natural and organic food and choose products that match their values. But it can be difficult to find these ethical products in the normal marketplace, even the urban areas. So then the Good Market was started as a physical marketplace to bring together these mindful producers and mindful consumers. Actually, Good Market mission is to make it easier for people to make choice that are good for our planet, our community, and our health. So what we do is actually the sharing information, that the amount of information available on environmental, social, and health issues and alternatives can be overwhelmed. The good market complies, translates, and shares information so that it is relevant and accessible to local producers and consumers can be used to make informed decisions. So the other one is improving access. Information is only useful if alternatives and local available, but the good market helps make environmentally sustainable, social responsible, and healthy products and services more accessible and affordable to local producers and consumers. The other one is building a community. The good market creates a fun gathering place for people to meet and connect. This builds a community of people that are committed to help their ecosystems, communities, and individuals, and provides opportunities for them to share ideas and collaborate. So the next point is, the inspirative creativity. Be setting standards. The good market is creatively and encourage people to look for alternatives that are good for people and the planet. So creative solutions are highlighted and collaborate to encourage and motivate others. The good market concept could be applied anywhere in the world, but it's particularly relevant for Sri Lanka. So the real opportunity of Sri Lanka is to focus on its roots and develop a reputation of for wellness, fair trade, and environmental sustainability. So good market principles. That good market operates according to the 5 principles. One is organic for all. Organic should be niche products for the wealthy, because health, safety, organic food should be accessible and affordable for everyone that wants it. We want to make it easy for people to grow their own organic food or purchase directly from organic farms. We want to reduce cost by expanding production, making supply chain more efficient, developing a local certification system, and mobilizing support for organic policies. So then next point is local first. We prioritize products made by local people from locally available resources. We want Sri Lanka resource to stay within Sri Lanka wherever it's possible. This make our economy strong and more, and it helps the planet by reducing food miles and carbon emissions. Informed choice. People have a right to know what is in their products, where they were made, how they were made, and by whom. An ethical company gives people all of the information they need and lets them make it their own decisions. Constructive actions. We would rather talk about what we are for than what we are against. The good market encourage people to create the type of world they wanted to live in and partner with others that share the same value or mission. A good market vendors look for creative solution rather than copying or criticizing others. So inclusivity. Each of has the potential to help create a better world. We contribute in different ways depending on our skills, passion, context, and experience. The good market recognizes and tries to create space for all kind of people that wanted to do good for people and the planet. So continuous improvement. You have got to start somewhere. The good market isn't perfect, but we are committed to working with vendors to raise standards and make it better and better. We see constructive criticism and negative feedback as an opportunity to learn and improve. This is the good market vendors. Actually, I would love to, explaining this, but I would really like to telling about, because especially in after the tsunami, after the war, a lot of people they are trying to move their, their, the life. They are trying to, develop their own income or maybe their own businesses. They are trying to resettle in their lives. So then actually good market, we really focused on these kind of marginalized groups to come and sell their products, because we have the different kind of vendors at the moment. So especially individuals, government agencies, non-government organizations, cooperatives, and companies with products and services that are good for planet, good for the country, and good for you. Actually, the good market is a curated event, which means all vendors go through an application and review process to ensure that meets good market standards. Priority is specially given to mission-driven social enterprise, rural products, and responsible businesses. Good market consumers committed to mindful. I mean, most of the time, good market is always. I mean, the trying to bring committed to mindful consumers by nearly all of their weekly requirements at the good. They are buying at the good market. And the next point is developing a relationship with good market vendors and giving constructive feedback on how to improve products or the market as a whole. And the sum of people come to the good market because they are curious. They have heard about organic and natural foods, fair trade and eco-friendly products, and they wanted to see what is available and what to learn more. And the other one is some people come to the good market just to enjoy the public space. They come to meet family and friends, have a snacks and enjoy the music and entertainment. The good market tries to provide information and service for all level of interest and engagements. The good market volunteer. Actually, good market is a social enterprise, and it has a ton of volunteers. This is actually volunteer-driven program. From the beginning, at the good market has been a volunteer-driven. Volunteers have offered their time to help with good market stalls, review applications, develop consumer awareness materials, create eco-education programs, organize music and entertainment, offer classes for kids, assist with organic certifications, design logo and promotional materials, take photographs, music. I mean, actually, most of the creative ideas that make the good market what is it today came from good market volunteers. So this is actually related to some gentlemen also asked about how you define social enterprise. Actually, what we thought like good market also social enterprise, but normally we can see a lot of non-profit organizations in the country and the profit companies in the country. But for the non-profit companies, especially their purpose is mission driven, created an address to social and environmental problems. For the profit companies, they are profit driven, created a maximized profit for owners. But the social enterprise, what we thought mission driven, create to address social and environmental problems. So it's a sustainability wise. Non-profit companies, there is no, if they are depend on the continuous donations. For profit companies, yes, they are self-financing. But the social enterprise, we thought yes, it's also self-financing. So then the monitoring process, like non-profit companies, they are monitoring social and environmental impact. For profit companies, they are monitoring financial systems. But this, I mean, especially for the social enterprise, they are social and environmental impacts also they are monitoring, and also they are concerning about the financial monitoring as well. What we thought actually good market would be like social enterprise. That's our structure. So these are the good market standards. I am not going to, go for them beyond the good market products, but the standards. But we have different kind of products who are coming all the way. All over the country. Plant-based products, animal-based products, prepared foods, body and home products, art and handicraft. And also it's a packaging, like, because good market is a polythene free area, because we are always creating a decision good for planet. So then definitely we are promoting biodegradable packaging and social impact and the environmental impact, because always we are encouraging our vendors to beyond their profit to do something at least for social or environmental, because always if they are they drive their businesses to sustainable way, definitely they have to think about their environmental as well. So then always we are trying to encourage them for these kind of impacts. And these are the good market, the standards. I don't want to go more furthermore, but especially why we are actually create that standards is because always we saw a lot of the people who are all over the country, they started their businesses, and but the problem is maybe sometimes when they accessing through the market, they have a lot of constraints sometimes for the certification system. Good market is helping to them as well, because always if they really need to access to domestic and international market, we are actually with them and we are connecting them for any other necessary help, the necessary action points and the certification systems and these kind of things. And these are some of the standards for prepared food. Actually, good market is the healthy food. The people can eat healthy food. It's all, sometimes we can say all natural and healthy, all natural and sustainable, because always we are trying to source all the ingredients from local source. Always we are encouraging people to do that. So then personal care and household, original art and handicraft, and the packaging, and the social impact. And I think in my picture presentation, you saw a lot of foreign people. A lot of people are there. Actually, they are selling products. Actually, these kind of things. Actually, there are a lot of behind stories, because some of the people are based in Jaffna. They are doing their businesses in Jaffna. Sometimes they really need to bringing down their product to the city areas, Colombo. But the problem is because a lot of people are. I mean, they are not that much talking in English and maybe in Sinhala. So a lot of foreigners are voluntarily helping to them to sell behalf of their product. It's actually, so we are giving a benefits for the volunteers and also the producers also. So that's how Good Market is starting. This is kind of like where we are. Actually, these are our normal time schedule. And this is our timeline. Actually, we started 2012 with 32 small-scale vendors all over the country. In 2014, it's 135. Now we started another market, Saturday market also. Now actually we have a Good Market shop, mini outlet, to offering all this kind of ethical, all over the country, ethical products. So that's it. So thank you so much for giving me opportunity.
Yeah, I was also hoping that you'd pick up on some of the questions that came earlier and respond to them. But maybe we can see if you can do that in due course. So Murtaza, I just want to hand over to you, but just want to also throw a couple of things out there for you to maybe consider. One is the kind of issues that Rajalakshmi's presentation threw up in terms of the question of the responsibility, in a sense, of the private sector in a context of conflict or post-conflict. How do you, how does the private sector, for instance, in Sri Lanka, from your perspective, how is it embraced that or not, or what are the issues there, concerns there? And secondly, I think the whole idea of looking at how can business make social sense as well as profit? I mean, the whole question of being relevant to where business is happening, what forms of accumulation does the private sector kind of thrive on, and what are its social and political effects? To what extent do you think a conversation is possible with the private sector around some of the questions that were raised kind of earlier? Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Vijay. I'm Murtaza Yusuf Ali, and my work is in HEMAS, which is a conglomerate involved in consumer goods, healthcare, tourism, hotels, and transportation. And so I'd like to start by this whole I'm very uncomfortable about social entrepreneurship. The definitions are very academic, technical definitions here. You're an entrepreneur with a good heart or not. You have to succeed for your business, for your enterprise to succeed and to keep going. You have to have a market. You have to have you have to have a market for your ideas or for your products, and somebody's willing to pay you a premium for your differentiated idea. I think the Good Market is a great business idea. It's a great differentiated idea. That's why I think it'll really take off. Take the Tata Group. I think it's a brilliant example of a enterprise. I kind of one of their board members sit on our board, and I think they ask every time a business opportunity comes up in Tata, they ask 3 questions. Is it good for the country? Can we differentiate it? Is it good for our business to get into this new line? And my fervent wish is that philosophically all the enterprises, the bigger enterprises, can think like that. And I don't think they do, but I think the whole area of sustainability in some systematic ways percolating into the consciousness. Many larger companies are now following GRI, Global Reporting Initiatives, which give you a framework. So for example, our company only a few years ago started this, talking to stakeholders, figuring out what their concerns are, and then trying to, move away from this traditional philanthropy approach to look what matters to our stakeholders, and and planning some of our what are called CSR activities of approach based on what is crucial to the stakeholders of our businesses. To me, I've spent my whole life, in entrepreneurship, wealth creation is why I get up in the morning to do, and it is. I've had a huge silver spoon when I started, but many of my friends and colleagues in entrepreneurship is sheer heroism. I tell you, the stress, the pressure to work in an environment in developing countries where it's absolutely uncertain, and that the government, everyone is out to demonize you. That taxman is harassing you, the government is harassing you, everybody is, and costs have been going up tremendously. So it's absolutely heroic to actually get into entrepreneurship. And unfortunately, and I think it's the only way. It's the only way. It's been proved, historically, in strong competition. If you don't have monopolistic, if you have strong regulations, and competition really can be the key to, is really the key to make social good and that trickle down effect happen. The problem is our countries don't have strong, there are cartels, the whole industry, every business, every sector there's a cartel, there's price fixing, there's all kinds of things going on. My God, I realize I'm on television. But it happens because the regulation is not strong, the litigation is not strong, and it will happen. It'll hopefully consumer rights movements have to get organized and keep corporates on their toes and create a more competitive environment. I just wanted to say 4 or 5 things. One of my favorite stories is the story of a friend of mine who manufactures bicycles, and he realized that Jaffna post-war desperately needed bikes. His study showed that at least 100,000 bikes are required, especially in the most rural parts of Jaffna, where the transportation systems were not working, and a culture of bike riding also existed. So he set out to provide bicycles that will help kids to get to school, as well as the parents to transport goods to market. And he was trying to, he ended up to the Indian High Commission because his bicycle principles were from India, and he persuaded them to buy 15,000 bikes for people in the Jaffna Peninsula, and he would get the semi-processed bikes down to Sri Lanka, and he'll build a factory in Vaunia, and he'll employ disabled, mostly women, to work in the factory. And he got some help from ZOA, an NGO, with the infrastructure, and at the end of it, the 63 people he employed today run their own bicycle shops, mostly women. In the back of their houses, they've been trained how to maintain bikes. And unfortunately, that and UNHCR also, I think, helped him with some tools and stuff. But I think the demand is still out there. His bike is about 12,000 Sri Lankan rupees, multi-purpose bikes with the carriers, especially for fishermen who need to carry that fish. And I thought super example of social entrepreneurship. He didn't know what it's called. I don't think he knows what social entrepreneurship is. I don't think he knew how to really pitch his idea in the way, for example, the Good Marketer have come to recognition. I thought, great idea, lacked sponsors, lacked the sophistication how to present himself as a brilliant social entrepreneur. I think he would have got enormous amount of funding from from corporates and do gooders in Sri Lanka. So we make toothpaste and cream, the cologne, and we sort of supply 70,000 small shops across the country. So we have a kind of a sense of what's going on for the small businessmen. Many economists come and ask us what's happening in the economy because we kind of know what's going on. So one thing we realized is in the north, there's lots of unemployment, as you know, in 18 to 25-year-olds. There, I think when Jaffna opened up, what we found was lots of people, lots of the banks and finance companies rushed in there and gave lots of people 6,000 credit cards, lots of loans, banks, and now they're struggling to, get that money back. I don't know if there's been a culture of taking loans, taking credit and repaying. So what's going on there is there's a bit of a credit crunch now. There's a bit of a cash crunch where banks are not lending anymore. These 18 and 25-year-olds, I don't know what they're doing. So maybe they really want to stay there, but in most parts of our business, especially our tourism, where we're building also hotels, our big nightmare is where are we going to find the staff? I think Sri Lanka needs something like 70,000, people to be engaged in the tourism sector. So maybe there's, you need small enterprises, social enterprises to actually train up these 18, 25-year-old young people that they can be employed in the tourism industry, and initially in the south, and then eventually tourism will move in a big way into the north. So that's another point I just wanted to make, that it's I think we did well in war, and we're doing well in peace. We found foreign companies were much less, so the competitive environment much less in the businesses we were doing. Now we see all the Indian companies and all coming here, so but our hotels business, our tourism business is really down. So we're doing much better now in tourism. So your point about do we do well in war? But the approach. The point I want to make is our approach. The third point I want to make is that the approach, I think, in the private sector is still this philanthropical mindset is still very much, I think, there, and that really needs to change. I think this whole idea of social entrepreneurship can be quite exciting to entrepreneurs. Particularly, I think one of the things we forget is what do the entrepreneurs do with their surplus? So you've seen. So successful entrepreneurs end up with lots of surplus, some of which, they want to plow back into, to ease their consciences for the bad things they do in the course of business, if nothing else. And I think if you take, Bill Gates and Warren Buffett and, the poster boys of great entrepreneurs plowing back in systematic, very good ways to create social justice, social good, healthcare. I think these entrepreneurs, including myself, and my own family, we're struggling. How do you the things we've identified? It's very hard to give money away in a way that you can be sure that it achieves these objectives. So I think it's important to think about not just how businesses, but the owners of these businesses. What do they do with their surplus, and how can they, instead of just giving it as tax, some of their money, can they find other ways of redirecting their profits into enterprises that can have this multiply effect. And my last point is some of the things we've been trying to do, which I don't know whether it qualifies under Anna's definitions, but we sell to pharmacies. So one thing we do is we train hundreds of pharmacies in the country how to increase their profitability, because just how you manage inventory, how you manage your shelving, because we are able to move around the country and see the best practices, and we try and give it to, so, and then in that way earn the loyalty of those pharmacies. We've been I think one of the reasons why in Sri Lanka social enterprise is maybe thriving less than Pakistan is because the government state system is much stronger. It's much smaller country, and there is a lesser vacuum. So from healthcare to they're going to give tablet PCs to midwives any day now to manage to track nutrition, infant nutrition, which is so you could see how progressive relatively to the rest of the region, how governments in this country the government is able to really deliver on some of the things that the market fails. And finally, most of our work has been around early childhood development, building preschools and making sure they're still in operation. We've had a very fruitful partnership with the Ministry of Child Development for well over 10 years. There's now some capacity that we've created. So staying with one thing and just trying to be, and working with a credible partner like government when you're handling these areas, it has served us well. But we are still very activity and input mindset. I've failed to make people realize the importance of, what is the social impact, measuring the social impact. Accountants should start by understanding, like they're so tough on returns and ROC and ROI. When we give money away for these sort of things, financial sector community, and now there's a lot of education and talk about it, they must be also tough-minded to ask, how can we measure the returns? And that's where organizations like SEPA perhaps can really help to those are some of my comments.
Thank you. I think it's very interesting. I'm sure people have questions and comments. Chris.
Well, one comment on the whole issue of definition. I'm far away from wanting to invite an academic discussion in order to get clear-cut analytical categories, but I think it's important to be aware that if one uses the two definitions proposed, the more pragmatic one, Anna, that you presented, or Achala, you did it by distinguishing profit, non-profit, and social enterprise. In both definitions, the Center for Poverty Analysis would qualify to be a social enterprise. When it was conceptualized and established 13 years ago, it was not established under Social Welfare Act as an NGO. It was established as a company, but as a non-profit company. It was clear from the outset that donor funds would be very limited to it, because SEPA was pushed into the market where it had to compete for funding of those who would be willing to invest into research, and it would have to sell its services. And by selling services, it would have to compete with other consulting agencies. So that was at the outset of SEPA 13 years ago, but at that point no one regarded SEPA as a social enterprise. Now, why do I say that? I think there are two dangers. On the one hand, the danger is that one may, if one follows a pragmatic definition that you tried, Anna, that one may come to conclusions that are questionable. One conclusion that you presented was that Sri Lanka has a very nascent social enterprise sector. Now, it can only be nascent because the term social enterprise wasn't used 13 years ago when SEPA was established. Right? But if you really follow a self-definition, then maybe even MAGA, who was established in 1972, would claim to be a social enterprise. So that is one danger that I see, and why one has to be a bit careful about the definition. The other danger that I see is what we have observed in the NGO sector is that the term NGO and the registration NGO has often been used by organizations to cover up for services that they wanted to sell in the market. And whether it's even Sri Lanka, I mean, Achala, has often been criticized to be a consulting agency that competes in the market and earns money, right? Not for profit, but it earns money. So the NGO sector, at least some elements of it, felt a bit undermined by organizations who acted like a private sector organization but registered under NGO in order to have access to better conditions. Now, if the same would happen to social enterprise, you may end up with undermining the concept of social enterprise by not distinguishing those who do it for very opportunistic reasons from those who do it for very genuine reasons. And therefore, I think there is a call to try and be a bit precise on what shall one regard as a social enterprise and what not. Maybe one may come to the conclusion that Murtaza comes to, that the term doesn't really help.
I need to get closer to the mic. Murtaza may not recognize me with all the lost hair. Having spent almost 29 years in the private sector and coming from a political pedigree, you know, the fact that we are talking of social enterprise and, you know, methods of uplifting livelihoods. I would like to ask Murtaza, having been born with a huge silver spoon in his mouth and now struggling to find ways of doling out assistance, do you find more credibility in NGOs for your funding or state organizations? Now, if you look at the government's attempts to uplift poverty, starting from Janasavir to Divinaguma. Now, the intentions could be pure, but in the deliverance mechanism, we still find that people who benefited or who were on the Janasavir roll way back in '89 are still on the Samutti roll. So, has the state and the private sector or the NGO sector really worked to alleviate poverty, and have we, what has gone wrong? Like, in your view, how would you look at, were you more successful moving through the NGO sector or the government sector?
As far as the organic products are concerned, the vegetables and fruits, so how you are certain that they are producing organically? How you are confirming the menu it's 100% organic, and how you are ascertaining that that people are not using carbides in the production of fruits? So I want to clarify, because as far as Jaffna is concerned, it's the land already have that fertilizers and minerals. So whatever mineral you put, but that plant will get the base. Okay.
I think we have questions then I...
Less conspicuous. Thank you. I'm sorry I wasn't there right from the start. I was in another panel, but my question, what struck me when I was listening to the last bit, particularly to what Murtaza said when he said he was a little skeptical about social enterprise, was that what he said was that any competitive in creating wealth. And I was thinking, how do you define what is good for your country? And that is, for me, the critical issue in that, because different people think different things are good for the country, and we have been discussing that right through this last 3 days. And one of the things that, and I think the social part of the social enterprise, we've had a history, as somebody, I think, mentioned, about doing good for the people less fortunate than us. What we haven't had, and then I think we have to become more careful about that, is how are we working within the natural limits of what we have? So I think in some times we might be actually destroying. So I don't know whether that also, and that's sort of related to what the good marker does, but it's not just about organic growth, but it's also about whether you clear forests for bringing in dole bananas or things like that. And that is, at one level you might say that's really, when I argue about that, people say, oh, but it's good for the country, it creates so much employment. But then it may not. So how do we balance those issues is really my
question. Okay. Thank you, presenters. Very inspiring. And I try to brainstorm a little bit, try to rescue the concept of social enterprises and need your advices. And because so many people are questioning this concept, so I'm thinking, should we just put some precondition when we define the social enterprises? Because if we define the social enterprises in a conventional way, we might find out most of the business in Sri Lanka can fall into the categories in social enterprises, big or small. Even China Harbour, even the Chinese investment there in the highway, they can fall into the same category. And how can we distinguish them? Well, the only thing I can think about is that the country like Sri Lanka, about how to do good to our country, what is so different about Sri Lanka with other more developed countries? Do we have the problem of missing middle class? So can we say that if a business can just try to fix the problem and promote more inclusive growth, that might be more suitable to be titled as social enterprises than the larger foreign investment that just does not contribute to the missing middle issue greatly? And that's it.
We have 2 more questions from this side.
Hello. Thank you. Coming from the private sector, having worked in the private sector for a long time, I feel this terminology is coming actually from the private sector. Because initially it was the state which was doing all work for the benefit of the society, which was identified as social enterprises. I mean, state enterprises, then the cooperatives, it was a big term even in the West, long years ago. England has a lot of cooperatives. Still, Australia is a cooperative. I mean, probably you may not particularly aware. New Delhi is the biggest single cooperative in the world. The biggest, largest cooperative in the world. I mean, but they act as corporates because the identity is lost. I think how we have to look at the social enterprise is like this. An enterprise is basically a profit-making institution. Without profit, what is the motive to do something good? The motive is profit. But then when doing businesses, people found that certain business people, like Mr. Mumtaz found, when you have a heart, you feel like what you are doing is right. Then you try to carve out yourself from the rest of the people, like saying, how am I to show that I am doing something good? Now, actually, if you look at, say, an enterprise like Ceylon Tobacco, they might adhere to all the norms under the normal condition, and still we are a social enterprise. But then, if you look at primarily what they are doing, can you call themselves doing the right thing? I mean, they might have a lot of CSR projects. They might give proper taxes to the government, a larger single tax benefit to the government, and also to the employees very high salaries, so they can even themselves call themselves real social enterprising company. I mean, but if you look at primarily the objective of their purpose or their deliverance is not right. So I think, therefore, social enterprise is an enterprise. The private, certain people, now you are actually talking about Microsoft and all that. I mean, Gates. I mean, their model is social philanthropy, because they make profits and then recoup that profits for good things. It's not an enterprise really. I mean, then it is funded via the NGO deliverance. But a social enterprise, I feel, is a business. So the business, whether they are degrading the environment, whether it is beneficial to the people, whether their health concerns are addressed, or whether it is really good in everything, financial reporting, paying taxes, everything. If everything is right, then I feel making a profit is no harm, because you are looking into everything. So after looking into all the aspects, sustainability, the environment, the country, the government side, everything, if you look into it, I mean, like, making a profit is no harm. I mean, that is the motive to do it. That is on the definition side. Then coming back on to, yeah, then no, because there are a lot of things were discussed. I thought it is good to just highlight, because coming from the marketing sector, then the other thing is about these presentations. I think both presentations are very good, especially Achala's one. I realized that it is good, but then there is yet a little danger coming from the social enterprise. I mean, in that enterprise you're talking, your emphasis is mostly on organic. Now, one thing also must be said, when it comes to organic, people are not really aware of what organic is. So people needs a lot of training, and people needs constantly being trained, because they can go off track. Because when the demand increases, the motive, the focus shifts out, then they start adulterating the food, and then the organic matter goes off, and people will start eating. Then where is the social enterprise part? Because you start with a good motive, after some time, people will, this thing, in fact, I raised this at Jaffna forums. Initially, the food which was produced in Jaffna immediately after the ending the war was rather good. The palm tree, the palm jaggery, and some of those bites, and also the cordials were genuine. But now I feel the color is rather very green or very red, and the taste is rather different. And where is that the organic component? Because they found that the profits are there. In fact, some of the people from other areas are going and selling really, other stuff. They mix all this, and adulterated food is coming. Why Jaffna, like, open up? I mean, there is a danger. So this needs to be addressed. So I think that is one of the fundamental things. And also, why I said this, why I said this is markets are not going to be regulated themselves. So there is some kind of regulation needed from outside. I mean, we have seen this even from the financial markets, even in US. Initially, the motto was that they will be self-regulated, but nowhere in the world things will come automatically. Now the new thing, King, is some kind of regulation from somewhere else needs to become. And I think what NGOs have done in this instance is they have mixed up the enterprise thing, with the normal NGO work. I think Mr. Christoph also said, I mean, you got to really define where you are going to help, and then let the businesses run themselves. NGOs can probably give that standardization, the guidance, which people cannot find on their own. Then the businesses will run, but then it will be on track.
Yeah. Well, anyway, most of the things that I want to say was said by the previous speaker. But I want to also draw the attention, in an enterprise. Every enterprise is social because it has two, I would say, conflicting groups engaged. One is the producer or the seller, and then the consumers. Right? Now, if I take the good market, what it has done is, it has linked the producer with the consumer, but of a particular class. Right? So, it is, if you really go to the good market, you would see foreigners there and the upper class. Because every vegetable is at least 4 times the price of normal vegetable. I go to the good market and I buy, but I'm buying because I'm really pressurized to buy, because of my particular condition. But I think that under normal circumstances, I won't. So, what do you, where is the social part of this here? So, as he says, it's all for profits, right? So, that's one. Then the second one, I wanted to, Murtaza's thing, about, good business and so on and so forth. Everything is for profit. But what I would say is, without businesses losing track of the profit aspect, is there any way in which a regulating mechanism like the state link the small producers to big businesses? Can that be done? And that was shown somewhat in Nepal case, where the small microcredit systems were really linked to this. Now in Jaffna, we were talking to the Chamber of Commerce to see whether the produce of all the women heads of households can be, marketed under a particular brand name and whether Food City would buy it. Actually, Food City was willing to buy it. But there was a big hitch, is that those small producers cannot supply in the quantities that these chains require. So then they are now pressurized to supply to all the small people. They have to go in search, and that's practically impossible. But Food City or Keels or something like that, it's very convenient. But these are the in-between things that have to be done. But it can't be done by the private sector. The state has to come into that. Then the third, again, about this philanthropy, and we cannot confuse it with social enterprise. But it's only the big businesses that say, oh, you know, we have done a lot of bad things, now let's do something good. Until you come up to the level of Bill Gates, you want more. And so you will be plowing, you will be doing all kinds of things, bribing the politicians, you know, till you come to Bill Gates. Then you sit and you become a saint. So then, in between, so I'm just giving you different cases to show that there is a state role in this. Unless you have it, it cannot work.
Okay, now I have to hand it back to the panelists because we have just 10 minutes. Can I, let me start, I'll actually start with, all of you will have just 2 minutes to reply. So please choose what you want to reply to. Maybe you should give information about how it is organic later, because maybe you should answer the bigger questions, yeah? Okay, so let me start with you. Do you have anything to say? Yeah, please. So just 2 minutes.
Okay. I just want to add, like in Nepal also, there was lots of attempt to generate micro-enterprise and social enterprise, but the problem was that till there was fund, they will survive and then it's end. And another problem was happened that it was run by the people who worked in NGO, who never run enterprise, didn't have any idea about how market works or access. And so now there's a trend where these social enterprise or the NGO or the donor are moving toward FNCCI, using the FNCCI network, its skills, training, its expertise to train the people who they want to convert into entrepreneurs. So I see a very big role of private sector playing the role, playing as a bridge to connect the motive of the development sector and where we want to have the economic recovery and all that.
Yeah, I think I recognize Naushad the moment you spoke. Yeah, I think we found this area as a niche where early childhood care development was not was a devolved subject, and it was but the local authorities didn't have the capacity to do those projects themselves. Central government could only provide advisory and technical services. So it's a sort of nice niche where we could actually help to bridge the two local authorities, and that's how we got into it. And I think the general skepticism of NGOs in the corporate sector very unfairly, you know, I mean, there's, you know, when I was sort of invited to be participate involved in SEPA, I was amazed at how you know, how analytical and how, you know, how some of the research work that's done and puts the private sector to shame. The rigor of analysis and all that is amazing. So I think there's a lot of misconceptions about NGOs being very, you know, hippie type people who, you know, flower, you know, poppy eating. It's a real caricature. And you know, I think the same caricature of, you know, I'm sure about the corporate sector is out there. I think the point, I think Priyanti is, you know, bang on when she said what's good for the country. And absolutely right. I think corporates think they know what's good for the country. You can rationalize anything you do and say it's good for the country. And more, you know, knowledge of what's good for the country when deciding on what enterprises do and seeing the social good that businesses are doing in a very, very thorough way, where, you know, and as I said, thankfully, accounting standards are moving forward. And there's a lot of pressure on, and fortunately institutes of chartered accountancy and all are really trying to try and get our people who report on companies, especially the bigger public companies, to really see sustainability and report meaningfully on impact you're creating on a business. And I can see even our company, it's getting more and more sophisticated each year. So I think we're heading in the right direction. I think the final point about can the state be an intermediation service between small producers and big companies? I think absolutely. I mean, look at Japan, Mitsubishi, Toyota. All of them were actually groups of micro business people who were operating under 50 different names, who were brought under the banner of Mitsubishi, Toyota, and to produce that final automobile or motorcycle. It was a wonderful example, and I'm not sure how much the state was involved, but yeah, somebody's got to try and make those linkages happen. There's a lot of things that it's not worth say a bigger company to do. You prefer to outsource it, but you want to have it with a guy who's a company who's responsible, who it's not going to explode in your face later. So I think there's a real role for something like that. I think as my favorite example, favorite quote was by Dr. Mehta of the WHO, who was talking in the healthcare context, but I think is applicable to countries as a whole. Sri Lanka has islands of excellence and no bridges.
That was really well summarized, I must say. So we really do get to hear a lot of backlash on what do you mean by social enterprises. Is it just an old wine in a new bottle? Are you just shoving a new term down our throat? And is it just a new phenomenon that keeps researchers like us fascinated and busy? But on a more serious note, I would say that South Asia is a hotbed of social innovation, and the need is so vast. The need is so vast that we need more and more innovations that would address this in a way. And why would decreasing the donor dependence or the aid money be a bad thing? Whether it is through means of entrepreneurship, so be it. And I would say that the way social enterprises operate in different countries are very different. In India, you see them addressing the need of sanitation, toilets. In Sri Lanka, you often see them addressing the need of creating more environmental awareness. So it really depends on the need of the country, and as Priyanti really put it, what is really good for the country. And as per the definition, we see a lot of definitions emerging from the organizations that come up to support these innovations. For example, the impact investors, they really want the enterprises they support to be for profit, but at the same time, they would differentiate them from the regular enterprises by also measuring the social impact that they make in a very measurable terms. So India is actually coming up with their own definition of what do they mean by impact. They want to measure an impact. Now there are all these social enterprises, over 500 working on it. And I know, Vijay, you're looking at the time, just a few seconds. But there is also this entire amount of money going into the tune of $1 billion into this entire social enterprise space in India. So we need a definition, but we also need it to be socially relevant in order to differentiate it from regular businesses. So it's really emerging for South Asia, I would say.
Okay. So you ask about is that vegetables are organic? So yeah, that is really, I mean, the important questions, because if we can't say just wording, it's organic. So there should be some kind of certification system, by some kind of by independent body. Yes, we have that, like Control Union. They are actually, they do all this kind of the certification system. They are monitoring their soils and everything. But the thing is, at the good market, we have at the moment, moment, we have 3 groups who do organic. One is Seva Lanka Foundation, and other one is Saraketa Farm. The other one is Biofood. So then Biofood and actually Saraketa, they have worked with the small scale producers or farmers, and Biofood actually take that certification on behalf of the farmers. Actually, that farms are really they're monitoring, regularly monitoring, and that is certification is really expensive. Even one farmer, they can't afford that price. From the good market side, we realize that problem, and since we are actually promoting at the good market, there is another PGS certification called the actually PGS, participatory guarantee system. It's mean like for the farmers, they can afford that is maybe 1,000 rupees, but the regulations like the monitoring system, then the standards all are according to this IFORM standards, and the consumer can visit their farms, and it's really we are thoroughly monitoring their all the things. And not only that, even the like from the farm to market, they have it's sealed. It has a sticker. They are putting that sticker, and then only they can bring, because we have to be honest, and it's depend on the trust, but we can't depend only on trust. It's beyond the certificate. That's why we are actually encouraging farmers. That is the one thing. And the price, actually, I know it's little bit, not little bit, it's expensive, because we are in a hard time, because we have very limited farmers. Actually, they comparing with conventional farmer, organic farmer is getting really less, harvest. So actually, they have to afford, like even for the organic fertilizer certifications and their energy and everything, because we have to protect this, the organic farmer. So that is actually really challenging. But our theme is organic for all, not for the high end. So then we are encouraging always to people, especially in village area, encourage them to do their home gardens. We are helping to them. We are sharing informations to start their own. After their family consumption is beyond their family consumption, then only they can access to the market. So sell their products to the high-end people, especially urban people, because they haven't any gardens, the home gardens. They are in like flats, or maybe that's why we are actually creating. Definitely, if we are planning to go in future to the the Kandy, maybe Jaffna, but it's not the same model. It should be changed, not the Colombo one. It's not for the high-end people. But in future, definitely we are trying to reduce this, because if we have more supply, then definitely we can. If we can meet the demand, definitely we can reduce the price cost. It will take a time, but it's only 1 year. But we have a lot of things to do.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. I think it was a very interesting discussion. Number of things that we need to think about. Hopefully, we this is just a start, and we can build on some of these things in the afternoon. Okay, because also in the afternoon we have Mr. Suresh Shah from the chambers who will be here. So we can take some of these discussions into the plenary. So thank you very much, particularly to our panelists, to Rajalakshmi and Anar, and to Murtaza and Achala. Thank you very much for coming. Please join us for lunch. Thank you to all of you for making this an interesting discussion.